My sister cleared out my savings account in order to pay back her gambling debts, and my parents somehow convinced me to forgive her. She did something even worse, so I exposed her in front of everyone at Thanksgiving dinner. A few years ago, my sister asked for my credit card so she could order herself takeout as her card was locked. Instead of takeout, she used my card to access my savings account and cleared out every dime to pay back her gambling debt. These savings were meant to be used on a house, but now they were gone. When I found out what she did, I went insane. I locked myself in my apartment and started drinking, then sent a text to my sister telling her I hate her and she can rot in hell. The very next morning, my parents showed up. They said what she did was forgivable because family is more important than money. I stared in disbelief, then yelled, "Of course, they say that. She's their precious golden girl who could do no wrong." My mother started crying crocodile tears, but when she saw I wasn't budging, she began screaming. At that moment, I kicked them out, telling them that just like my sister, they could go to hell. My sister had taken over $75,000 from me and now I had to renew my lease in an apartment for another year when I should have been using that money on a down payment. It had taken me years to build my bank account to that amount, and it was gone in an instant. My parents complaining that they hadn't seen me in a while, I would remind them why I wasn't going to visit them, which was my sister, Jane, and they would bring up how I would regret it when I'm old and gray. And they said I need to cherish the time we have with each other because it was limited. I agreed and told them that they always had the option to come visit me. Truthfully, I didn't want them to, but I knew the game they were trying to play, and I wasn't having it. My mom told me that Jane said she missed me and that she would always love the little Sam who we had to clean up after he got spaghetti in his hair. When I was a toddler, my mom gave me spaghetti while I was sitting in my high chair. I hated spaghetti since I was young and that day was the day she found out. After I tasted it, I began throwing it, kicking and screaming. The kitchen was a mess by the time I got done with it. I pulled my hair with my tomato-stained fingers. I was too young to remember, but Mom would always tell me this story, and it was always funny to me. That was when Jane came to the rescue. She took me out of the high chair and held me. She cleaned me up and helped Mom clean the kitchen. She was roughly 12 at this point. Hearing my mom tell me that story again made me cherish our family a little bit more. In a moment of utter weakness, I decided that I would give Jane another chance, but with more boundaries set this time. Forgiving her took time. As the days turned into weeks, it still pained me to think about her or see her face because I was reminded that the progress I had made for my first house was out the window. I tried my best to be cordial with her, and my parents seemed to like the improvements in our relationship. They invited me more often for family dinners, game nights, and movie nights in an attempt to get our relationship back to what it was before, but the thought still stung. After a few months of rebuilding my trust in Jane again, I felt like I could laugh a little more and be myself again around her. I didn't have to guard my wallet as much anymore, and soon we would hang out by ourselves and go on sister-brother outings. One of our favorite things to do together was ziplining. There was this ziplining place near my parents' house where we would go a lot as teenagers. The zipline started from the top of a cliff, sort of in the woods, and would drop you off into the lake. It was so high up, and I never got used to the drop. But it was fun going there with Jane again. When we returned home from our little adventure, we went to a fast food place back in the city because we were starving. As we pulled into the drive-thru to pay, I noticed that my main credit card was missing. This was my everyday credit card. I wondered if it could have fallen out of my pocket at the ziplining place. Jane asked me if everything was okay, and I told her that my credit card was missing. She said it was no worries and offered to pay for our food with hers. We got our food and headed home. I had to drop Jane off back at our parents' house because she lost her car in a bet, about a year ago. When I got home, I checked my wallet again and found my credit card, except it was in a different pocket in my wallet than the pocket that I usually put it in. I figured I was just tired, and that was the reason I hadn't noticed it before, so I went to bed. The next night, I got a text message from my credit card company asking for authorization for a casino near my parents' house, the same casino that Jane spent her entire check on every other Friday. My heart dropped. I couldn't believe that Jane had pulled the same stunt again. I immediately declined the transaction and checked my other accounts. She must have taken pictures of my credit cards and put them back in my wallet when we hung out the other day. My other credit card app showed that I had hit my limit for the month and I knew that wasn't the case. I tried to call and dispute the payments, but the merchants showed proof of my sister being the one making the purchases. They declined my request to dispute the charges, and now I'm left responsible for the debt. I called my sister, and she didn't respond. The phone clicked in the middle of the tone like she declined the call. My blood was boiling. I called my parents, and my mom answered. I told her the situation and how Jane racked up $7,000 worth of debt across all of my credit cards that night. She told me that she would call her and would call me back after she spoke with her. I told her no need and that I was coming over that instant. It was almost 11 o'clock at night as I headed to my parents' house and waited in the living room for Jane to return home. As she walked through the door, she flickered the light on, and I scared the daylights out of her when she saw me sitting in the living room chair. I asked her where was my money, and she looked puzzled. I told her that I already knew about her stealing my credit card information and threatened to call the police if she didn't tell me where the money was. She broke down and confessed saying that she felt bad about me not being able to get into my first house this year because of her and that she wanted to make up for it. So she used my money to play at the casino because she wanted to win the money back for me.